Hello, 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 you wonderful people. Welcome to Mastermind Content. I'm Richard Odell, and today I'm going to talk about the Philanthropist archetype, which is not an archetype you may be familiar with because it's not often found in other archetype models. So in this video, I will explain the function of the philanthropist in your personality and why it's important to recognize when this archetype is making your decisions for you, because this is one of the three ruling archetypes, which means that it's one of the decision makers within your psyche. So let me explain a little about the Mastermind Content Archetypes model. It deviates slightly from mainstream models. Now, although our model is more in keeping with the Enneagram, which covers 9 personality types, it also includes 3 ruler archetypes, which is important to identify when making decisions. This also means that our archetypes model stays true to the 12 main archetypes because that's what we find throughout the world in ancient wisdom, timeless wisdom. And myths describe human nature. Now, the other 2 ruling archetypes that are responsible for decision making are the warrior and the ruler. Now, the ruler is the ultimate commander. This is the part of your personality which you ideally want to make your decisions for you because it relates to the neocortex. Now, the ruler draws on the qualities of the philanthropist and the warrior, though. They take the 2 best qualities of the philanthropist and the warrior, and then you become the ideal, the perfect person as the ultimate ruler. So it's important to develop the philanthropist and the warrior so your ruler can make better decisions and turn up as your best self. However, the warrior and the philanthropist can also override the ruler in some kind of psychic coup d'etat, which will become more apparent in the example that I will give you shortly. But first of all, a little bit of neuroscience. So, as I briefly mentioned, the ruler archetype is your neocortex, which enables you to rationalize and reason before taking action. Now, this is the most sensible and mature part of your brain and thus your personality. So when the ruler is developed, you are able to weigh up the pros and cons of a strategy and determine whether the reward outweighs the risk. The warrior, which I spoke about in an earlier video, has command over the actions you will take. So it's basically, the warrior is basically responsible for strategy. It decides how you will approach a certain challenge or a certain situation, and then the ruler will take on board the ideas, rationalize and reason, and whether if it needs refining, the ruler will refine the ideas of the warrior. However, when the warrior is underdeveloped, you can be mindless, lack discipline, and act impulsively. Now, this is when the warrior kind of goes off the rails, and it also means that the ruler doesn't have the power to rein in the warrior energy. So from a neuroscientific point of view, this type of behavior is synonymous with the amygdala hijacking the neocortex being the decision-making faculty of the brain. In other words, your brain senses danger, which doesn't really exist. Your fight mode kicks in and you act irrationally. So whereas the ruler is the thinking faculty and decision-making function of the neocortex, the philanthropist relates to the limbic system, which governs emotions and feelings. So as a decision-making faculty, the philanthropist comes into play when you are driven to act by your emotions rather than a rational thought process. So when the philanthropist is stronger than the ruler, you don't have the discipline, the strength of mind, or the wisdom to overcome the force of your emotions. So a prime example of this is addiction. Let's say you're trying to give up alcohol. You finish work and get home and you don't have your usual bottle of wine waiting for you in the fridge. So far, so good. Because you have set an intention to quit drinking alcohol, your ruler has made the decision not to buy a bottle of wine, therefore eliminating the temptation Now this is a good strategy. So the warrior has decided that the strategy will be not to buy wine. The ruler agrees you don't buy wine. Anyway, you're now having your meal, and because you normally have a glass of wine with your meal, your emotional brain starts thinking, oh, a glass of wine would have been nice with this meal. So then the thought process is turning towards alcohol. Thoughts are related to certain emotions. So when you start thinking of alcohol, the emotion that you are wanting alcohol starts coming to the forefront of the mind. And this is when the inner conflict arises. The neocortex, the ruler, the rational part of your brain, wants to stay firm and says, no, we're not having wine, we're not drinking alcohol. However, after the dinner, when you settle down to TV and you start getting agitated as thoughts of wine become more intrusive, the ruler starts losing the power and control to say no. The emotional pull towards alcohol gets stronger and stronger. Now, if you don't have a well-trained ego, a strong enough ruler, then the likelihood is that you'll go off to the shops and buy alcohol. So then your warrior might step in and think, okay, we need another strategy, we need another distraction so that you don't feel restless and agitated because you're going through your usual routine of watching the TV. Now, watching the TV is when you're drinking wine, so the association of the TV is linked to the wine. And this again is when the emotional memory attaches to this familiar, habitual circumstance. So you need to then look at your warrior and think, okay, we need another strategy to occupy the time. So rather than watch TV, you do a different activity. So let's say you start doing some ironing, but 2 t-shirts in, you're getting increasingly restless because that diversion tactic that the warrior has come up with is not stimulating your reward center. And this is the key to overcoming habits. You have to replace the habit that you're trying to stop with another activity that you get an emotional reward from. It needs to stimulate the brain. So ironing is not providing the rewards to replace the alcohol. So this makes your emotional drive stronger and you start thinking about wine again. You even start thinking about going to get wine. That then releases the dopamine, which is the motivation, goal-seeking neurotransmitter. So the philanthropist is then attempting to make your decisions for you. It's an emotional drive that is overcoming the ruler who is not firm enough to say, no, you're not drinking tonight, we're giving up alcohol, or you're giving up alcohol. So you try to return to the ironing and push the thoughts of your head away, but the philanthropist fights back, and before you know it, you're overcome by emotions. The limbic brain is now communicating with the neocortex and trying to persuade you to change your mind. That little voice in your head that says, okay, well, maybe just tonight will be okay, I'll give up tomorrow, then starts making you change your strategy. So this is evidence of a weak, undeveloped ruler that is starting to crumble under pressure because the emotional drive is stronger. The emotions have more energy than the neocortex. So if your warrior is developed, then you might be able to fight back with a better strategy. But if the philanthropist is the dominating force, and it often is because emotions are charged with energy in relation to a situation, then you ordinarily end up falling off the proverbial wagon, and it's very difficult then to overcome habits. So as I mentioned before, to overcome a habit, you need to replace your habit with something that provides a emotional reward. So essentially, you know the philanthropist is your dominant ruling archetype if you allow your emotions to make your decisions for you. Now, to help you understand, identify and remember the philanthropist archetype, we use symbolism at Mastermind Content, and the philanthropist consists of the water element, which is a symbol for emotions, and the earth element, which is a symbol of duty and care, which tells you something about the functionality of the philanthropist. It's basically a force for change, and when this archetype is developed, it guides you towards healthy attachments that you love and feel passionate about. And when developed, the philanthropist is a source of growth and nourishment, because water nourishes the earth and enables you to bring the fruits of your labour to fruition. However, when this archetype is underdeveloped, your passions become misdirected. You attach yourself to destructive behaviours, negative attitudes and unhealthy habits. Not only that, when you're stressed, you can be unpredictable, like the sea, water, sea. You can also become flooded with emotions and feel overwhelmed. In addition, too much water makes the earth muddy and slippery, and it can become dangerous and treacherous. And this archetype, the philanthropist, can literally send you down a slippery slope. The destructive tendencies of the philanthropist are deeply rooted in false pride, guilt and frustration. You may feel as though you have a lower status in life than you had anticipated, and you have a subconscious need to demand more respect. Now, this can cause you to develop a sense of self-importance that generates resentment towards other people's achievements. And people who have a dominant philanthropist in their makeup often feel dissatisfied, which makes them emotionally unstable, selfish and competitive. They're also prone to self-sabotage. Now, as a ruling archetype, the philanthropist influences your attachments. It influences your decisions about how you protect your emotional well-being, and you'll let your heart rule your head. Your inability to control emotional drives can lead to higher degrees of risk-taking. You're even prepared to risk anything to give you a buzz, and that makes risk-taking even more extreme, such as extreme sports, gambling money that you can't afford to lose, and cheating on your spouse. Okay guys, I'm going to wrap this video up there, but if you have enjoyed the content, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more content. Thanks for watching. I'm Richard Oldale and this is Mastermind Content. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.